what is happening here is that I created a function which is going to receive a function, right? Which is going to receive a function. So what I can do here is to create a new type, and say express route handler, or route handler is this function that we have here. Right, so I can say it is going to receive a function. This function is expected to be a express route handler. So what is happening inside this function? Let me come again. This here, we have three functions here, three functions. This async handler is a function on its own. It is receiving a function as an attribute, that's making 2, and returning another function, making it 3. Are you getting me? So this function, we'll be using it outside of this file. This function here is the actual function that wants to undo what we want to do, which is something like this register, something like login. Are you getting me? So what we are doing inside this function that we want to return is that we want to call the function that was passed in, but it is being wrapped in a try and catch. So if there's an error, we'll call the next function, right? From this guy, we'll call the next function and pass in our error. So how do we use this async handler? I'll come to my route and wrap this guy inside async handler. So don't forget I said async handler is going to return a function, which means, let me put it this way. Controller dot register is a function, right? And I said async handler is going to return a function, which means if I call this like this, a function will be here that will handle this route, which is what we have here. This should be async. A function will be returned, which is this function I'm returning here. Are you getting me? And I said that inside this function, we are expected to pass in a function, which is the function that will handle the actual logic. That's the business logic. And that is our controller dot register. I believe we should be good. I believe we should be good. So here I'm supposed to do something like I'll wait for it to execute. All right, let me check the issue here. This is meant to receive the function request response and these guys are not imported, cannot be imported. Request is not imported, so I should have request response and so the problem was that I didn't import request and response, which is this guy and this guy. And now the errors disappeared. So if I wait for our server to start running, now it's running. Come back to our postman and send this request. You can see we now have our error properly handled while we still do not have try and catch it, you can see I commented this out, so I can now remove it. Okay, and we can now throw error in our application. Are you getting me now? You can now throw errors in our applications. So server is not on yet. Now it's running. So it's and let me change this to random. So yes, we are done with registration. Let me come here and do the same thing for login. So I'm going to say async and controller.login. Are you getting me now? So if I come to our login route, we have login successful. So I guess that was where we stopped in our last class, the login route. So what I'm going to, I already commented this, so let me just remove it. Yeah. Are we all still connected? Does anyone have any question at this time on what we've done tonight? All right, Sheikh, you want to ask something?
Yes, good evening, everyone. I want to ask if we want to handle all asynchronous functions, do we always have to have that async handler in that
Sorry,
form?
please come again. I can't hear you. Come again, please.
I said if we want to create any asynchronous functions, must they always have that format? Like the async handler, must it always be like
Yes,
that?
creating an asynchronous route handler. Yes, if the function would have to be in async, you have to wrap it in an async handler. Or if it is not an async, if it is not an asynchronous function, you can just call it directly. But most of your functions will be async if you are working on the business logic. Are you getting it? All right. So back to what we wanted to do today. We've done everything up to password comparison and you know. So what we want to do now is that we've ascertained that the user's password is correct. You are authorized to make this login request. Your password is correct. Okay. You want to return a token to the user, and this token is what the user is going to pass in for every other request that the person is making. That will make our backend understand that this is the person making this request. Again, in our login function, in our login controller, we are supposed to return a token. And this token is what we explain to our system. That, okay, oh, the person making this request is so person. Am I communicating?
Can you please come again? Your line was breaking.
Okay, can you hear me now? All right. I said in our login controller, we are going to return a token to the user. And it is this token the user is going to pass in every other request they want to make. It will make our backend, which is this system, to understand that the person making this request is Lindway. Are you getting me? So how do we go about that? We are going to install a package, which is JWT. Yeah, JWT. We are going to install JSON Web Token. So how do we install it? So install npm install JSON web token. npm install JSON web token. You can see we have added 14 packages and so on. So what we want to do, we want to be able to create token and verify token. So this place, in this our login page, I'm going to create a token. So what I want to do is to create another utilities and say jwt.cs. So here I'm going to export a constant function called generate token. This time we want to generate the token we want to return to the user. Don't forget I said this is a function, right? And this function is expected to receive the ID, which is a number. That is our user ID. Let me even call it user ID. Are you getting me now? This function is also expected to return a string, which is a token, a string, right? What are we doing? We are doing return JWT.sign. JWT.sign. Where is JWT imported from? Nowhere. So we are supposed to install the type definition so that TypeScript will get the type definition for JSON web token. So how do we do that? We say npm install as a dev dependency at types / JSON web token. So if I come to my packages of JSON, you can see dev dependencies and I have JSON web token. So if I save and try to import again, make this faster. So well, we can just manually import it from here. From here, so we can do something like this. But instead of doing that, we'll say import JWT from JSON web token. So yes. So yeah, JWT.sign. What do we want to sign in? The first thing it will receive is our payload, right? So what is our payload? Our payload is the user ID. So we want to say user ID. Okay, it is going to receive an object. Let me explain it in a way you understand. An object, and inside this object, we have the user ID. What's our user ID? It is user ID, right? And don't forget, I said if you have your key and your variable name as the same thing, you can just do user ID. Are you getting me now? The second argument is secret or private key. So it is this secret key or private key that it is this secret key or private key that JSON web token we use to encrypt the user's details. Are you getting me? So how do we get our secret key? We want to come to somewhere here. This is our ELV file and say JWT secrets. Don't forget, I said everything on your ELV file are things that are not supposed to be visible to everybody. They are secrets. So yeah, JWT web token. We want to use some random string. We can say, let's just copy this password here. And let's add some random characters to make it more secure. So we have JWT web token. You can just come to here and say constant secrets. It's what process.env.jwt secrets as a string. It should be a string, or just identify this variable as a string. So we are going to pass our secret as the second argument for this function. Are you getting me? And then we may want to pass other options like expires in. We want it to expires in. We want it to expire in 1 hour. Right. So yes, this is it. The JSON web token passing in numerous tokens. The first argument is an object, and inside the object we have the user ID. The second argument is a secret. That's our secret, the app secret. And then the last argument is an option, and inside this option we have expires in 1 hour. So what we are going to do is to come to our login page. Where's that login again? Login controller. We have user here. We can just come in and say constant token is what is generate token, which will be imported from our UTs, JWT. If you can see this. And then what are we passing in? It is accepting a number, which is the user ID. So we are going to say user.id. And we have a token. So all we can do is to say our success is true, message is login successful, and our data is what? Is an object of user. Our user is what? Is our user. Our token is variable token. And don't forget I said if the key and the variable name are the same, you can just do this. That's if you are inside an object though. So yes, now that I have this, I can try and log in again. Our server is not running yet, so now it is running. So let's send. You can see we now have a token. So this token is what the user is going to pass in to tell us that I am the person making this request. And if you notice something here, our password is showing, which is not supposed to show. So what we are going to do is to say, I'm going to destructure that user. I'm going to say constant password. You know, I can say email. I can say first name. I can say every other thing. Yes, very good. This thing I just did here make me have access to some details from the user as a variable. So I have password, I have email, first name, last name, and many other things. What I want to do is to extract the password, and every other thing I want to put them in rests. So which means the password and the rest of the things you have in this user. Are you getting me? So I have an error here, but I'll come back to that. A password gets the password and the rest of the things we have. And I'm having an error here because I already have a variable password here. So what I can do is to say password as something we don't need. So when you want to name a variable you don't need, you use just underscore. Something we don't need. Our user is rest. That's the rest of the user. Or let me just call it user without password. So our user is user without password. So let me send. Our server is not running yet. Now our server is running. What I want to do is to send the request. we have these attributes. We don't have the password API because we destructured it and return everything else apart from the password. Return everything else apart from the password. Are you getting me now? Are we all still connected? So, what do you want to do again? So, what I want us to do is to come to register as well. On the register, they wouldn't have to log in manually again, just generate a token for them and they should be able to access the app. So again, I'm going to come here and say constant password and user other user info. Just say other user without password, yes, is what. So here we are not setting our user to be something, but say constant user and it should be user. And what I can do is just copy what I have here, the generate token. And because we already have a variable password, it is not working. We can just say this variable password should be identified with this variable name, which is something we don't need. Now we have user without password and token. I want to just come here. Say, let me just copy this. Yes, we have user blah blah blah. So if I come back to my postman, my server is not running yet. If I come back to my postman and not running and send the register request, you can see we now have data, we now have user a token. Is anyone getting me? So if you notice something here, we have duplicate code here. We have the same thing we have here as this place. So what I want to do is to create inside my utils, I want to create a new file called types.ts, and this is where I'll be doing type definition. So I want to create a new type, export type, and this is auth response, and inside our authentication response, we have success, which is a boolean, we have message, which is a string, we have data, which is an object, and inside this object we have user, which is not a complete user because it doesn't have password. It is partial user. Partial user. And user is imported from Prisma client. And also we have a token, which is a string. Are you getting it now? So this is the structure for our auth response. What I want to do is to say so I can just do it in my auth controller. I can say I want to have a function that is say what can I call it? Let's just say get auth response. This function is going to receive a complete user this time around, but it's going to return a auth response imported from our utils type. So if I press enter now, it will automatically import it here. And here, what we want to do is to say return. Let me just copy what I have here. And we have our partial user, which is the user without password, and the token. So this is an actual response, which is a auth response. right? So what we are going to do is to return the response. And user is imported from smart clients. So what are we going to do? I'm going to come here and say what this thing should be get auth response, and we are passing in our user. So I can remove everything I have here. And likewise this place, I can remove everything I have here. And this one is a login request. We expect to have 200. So if you notice something, let me just show you. If I come here, send, everything works. Send, still works. Send again. You notice that I'm having login successful here, and this is a register route. So what I can do is to come back to my code base and say, after receiving message, the user, you want to receive a message to, which is a string, but the message can be optional. So this question mark here means the string, the message can be optional. So what we can do here is to say you want to assign message, but if the message is not available, you can use or request successful. So you don't want to limit this to login. You want to say request successful. Are you getting me? So we have message and we have request successful. So message or, don't forget this is all, message or request successful. So if I come here and send, I'll have request successful. Server is not running yet. Now we're running. I'll have request successful, and again login, request successful. So what I want to do is to come here and say get auth response, user and registration successful. To make this thing readable, let's just put it in. Let's put it in constant response. And let's just say user registration successful. So we are going to return back this response. Let's just copy this same thing, put that here and say user login successful. And we are going to return the response. Server is running now, so let's send. And yes, we have user login successful, user registration request successful. Now we know that our login and the register endpoints are working. What we want to do now is that now that we've been able, users have been able to log in, they've been able to register. When a user come back, the next request the user will be making won't be a login request. They won't be passing in their email and password. They'll be passing in this token to identify them. Are you getting me? And we are working on a block system. In our schema, we have user, we have blog posts. So yes, let's just create another resource. Let's just create another route. Yes, another route, but before then, we want to come to somewhere here and say app.use app. So anywhere you see this endpoint, you want to use protected routes, and we've not created that yet. So let's create. Say and say protected routes. Protected routes.cs. And getting me, let's just copy everything we have here. And we don't have any routes, so let's comment it out. Yeah. just a basic route file. So what we can do is to say come here, and so anywhere you see app, you want to use protected route. And where is protected route gotten from? You can say import protected route from this same directory, go inside routes and select from protected routes. Are we all still connected? All right. Something seems off here. Protected routes, protected routes. So yeah, if I come here and let me just say if there's a route, let's just do something like this. A simple route of the landing page. Yeah, we have something that's very, very basic as this. Request is request from Express. Response is response from Express as well. And yeah, we have everything working. So what I want to do is to come here, create a new folder inside our block collection, new folder, and say protected routes. And let me just copy this and paste it inside here. Don't forget, this time we are not using alt, we are using /app, which is just a test something. It should be a get request, right? A get request. So yes, we don't have anybody. So save and send. You can see everything seems to work like it is supposed to. Our route, our protected route is returning us something, even when we do not have our authorization header. And it is not supposed to work. We are supposed to pass in our authorization header. Inherit from parents, inherit from parents. I'm supposed to remove this. Yes, so now we are sure we don't have any authorization header here. If I send this, it is still going to work, which is not supposed to. So we need to create a middleware. What a middleware does is that before calling the actual route controller, method, the middleware will run to validate that the user is actually who they say they are. So what are we going to do? I have middleware's folder here. I'm going to say alt middleware. I'm going to say alt middleware .cs, right? And inside this alt middleware, what are we going to do? We're going to export. We're going to export. We're going to export. I'm going to export a new constant function, which is called alt middleware, which is just our normal middleware controller, middleware function rather. This is a request from Express. This is a response from Express, and this is a next function from Express as well. So yes, this is our basic controller. So what we are going to do is very good. What I want to do is to just log console.header, console.log alt middleware, yes, and console.log request.headers, so that you see what we are doing, and then go to the next route, go to the next function in the list. So how do we use this middleware? what we want to do is we want to come back to this index and see. So for routes that ask this app, you want to use the alt middleware first. Then after the alt middleware, the next one is the route, protected route. So you, after you've confirmed that the user is logged in and everything, you want to use this protected route. So this is the next that is inside this place. When you trigger this next function, it is this one that you are referring to. So let's just come here. Our server is not running yet. Now running. Let's send. Let's send. And if I come here, you can see I have these guys in my headers. I have user agents, assets, something, but I don't have anything like authorization. So what I'm going to do is to copy this our token. We copy this one. And then come to somewhere in my protected route. I'm going to, usually you see something like overview. I'm coming to authorization. I'm saying I want to use bearer authorization. And my token will be this token. So I can save. I can come back here. I can come back here, send this request. And if you see here, we now have this authorization in our header. Don't forget we did something very similar to that sometimes ago. Are we all still connected? All right, so now that we have our authorization in our header, what we want to do is to come back to our middleware. Don't forget what this middleware will do is to confirm that the user is actually who they say they are and even identify who the user is. So first thing we want to do is to say our token, or let's just say constant authorization. Authorization is what is request that headers authorization. Yeah, as simple as that. And we want to do it, we want to log our authorization. So we want to say authorization. And our server is not running yet. Now running. So let me send. You can see this is what our authorization looks like. It is bearer and then the token. So what I want to do is just to split this thing. And what do I want to split it with? This text, this space. So when I say split, it's going to look for whatever I pass inside this place, which is space. And where do we have space? We have space between bearer and the token. So that means it's going to make this an array. The bearer will be the first thing and the token will be the second thing. So let me just save and send the request again. Now you can see we have an array. The first thing is bearer, and the second thing is the actual token that we need, right? So that means this here is an array, and we need the second thing. And don't forget, I said if you are accessing something in an array, if I come here and say 0, I need, that means I'll be getting bearer. But if I come here and say 1, that means I'll be getting the token. So what I can do is to say constant token is let me just carry, and my AI is already suggesting that to me. So let me just pick up tab. Yes. Now we have our token. So let me log our token to the console. Log our token to the console. And send. Now we have just our token. So what if we don't have a token? What if the authorization header is not being passed? Let me come here and say, you know what? So let me send the request again. We have undefined, which means token is undefined. So we want to say, if not token, if you don't have the token, we want to throw a new app error, and the message will be, let's just say access denied, or let's say token not found. And then the status code will be 401. So let me just come here again and send. Now you can see I have token not found because I set the auth type here to none. So I want this to inherit from parent. And where's the parent? This folder is the parent. So let me send it in. Now we still have, now we are not getting token not found again. We still have our protected routes. Everything still works as expected. Right. Now we've been able to ascertain that we have the token. What we want to do is to get the user ID. Don't forget the other time, if I check our JWT here, when generating a token, we added user ID as part of the payload. Now we want to get that ID from that token. So what am I going to do? I'm going to come here and say, export another constant function that is verify token. Right? This is just a function. This function is going to receive a token, which is a string. And inside this token, inside this function rather, what do we want to do? I want to just say, let me just see, we want to, this function will return either, okay, so this function is expected to return our payload. But before then, let me just do this. Return JWT.verify. So here we are passing in the token and our secrets, which is our secret, the one we used in encrypting the token, in generating the token. We want to use the same secret to verify the token, which means this secret is very, very important, and that is why it is a secret. You don't want to expose it to anyone. Why? Because if I have this secret, if you expose this secret, let me just come to JWT decoder. If you export that secret, I have this token. Where's that token again? Let me just copy this one. I have this token. You can see it is already giving me the value that I have there. But I want to verify it with the token. This one size the last. Sorry, please give me a moment. All right, so I'm going to decode the token here. So what I want to do is to say, I want to decode here. I want to paste my JWT token here, and I'm getting that from here. I'm copying this. Put it here. I want to verify with the token. Let me do some fake token. And try to decode. It's passed for signing key is invalid. So we got an error that the key is not valid, which means this token is actually correct. It is being decoded, but the key we passed in is not valid. So what we want to do is this is our key that we use to generate it. This one. We want to put it here and decode. Now you can see signature is valid. Signature is valid. So you can also see the user ID here, which is 13. This is actually our payload, and we have the expiry timestamp. This is a timestamp. As I believe that's a timestamp. Yes, that's a timestamp. in 42 minutes. Don't forget to set our what's it called? Our expiry time to 1 hour. So yes, when verifying your token, you want to pass in the secrets. So we have the secrets here. And what we are going to do is to come back to this our ultimate here and say console.log, we want to call the verify token method from our JWT, and then we want to pass on the token. Let's see what we have. So let's just send. Sorry, we're working here. Let's send. And you can see we have the user ID 13 and some other things that we actually do not need at this time. So what we can do is to say, also in our middle, we want to say this thing is expected to return or give us something like as an object of user ID, which is our number. So if you come here, if I hover on this, you can see this thing is telling me that this verified token is going to return me an object with user ID of number. Are you getting that? So for safety, what we want to do is to just wrap this in a try and catch. And or let's just leave it. We already have a global try and catch. We may still come back to this, but let's just leave it for now. Now we are able to get the logged in user. Let's try doing something. Let's come here and say authorization. We don't want to use it from where I want to use it from parents. We want to use some random string, some fake things, and send JWT malform. So this is an error we got, JWT malform. So instead of getting this whole response, I want to just put this in a try and catch. Try. Or we say try. 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 Hash statement. And yes, I have this. And if you have an error, you should return no. Are you getting me? You should return no. So what we are going to do is to come here again and send. You can see we have no, but now our route is not being protected. So what we want to do is to say our constant decoded, which is the decoded data, decoded token. Just say decoded is verified token. So if not decoded, which means if it is null or if it is undefined, we want to throw a new app error that says invalid token, invalid authorization token, invalid authorization token, and I'm going to say 401 is our status code. So let's just come here again and send. Our server is not running yet, it's not running. You can see I have 401 unauthorized and we have invalid authorization token. So if I come back again and set this back to parents, which is the actual token, the correct one, we should have our protected route. So one more thing we want to do, we know that this guy is an object, right, of user ID, which is an object that has a user ID, which is a number. So what we are going to do is to get the actual user. And how are we going to do that? I'm going to come here and say constant user is await prisma dot user dot find unique, right? This is going to receive an object of where, and you want to see where the ID is, our decoded dot user ID. Now this is an async function. We are using await here. We want to say async, and here we want to say We want to import Prisma. We want to import Prisma. Importing Prisma like this. Let me just say Prisma. This was here, new Prisma clients. Just like we have it, here. We will still come back to a way to make that guy unique in our application. So we won't have to be initializing the new clients every time. So yes, now that we have the actual user, which has the email, the name, the so attributes, again, we want to confirm that the user already exists in our database. You know that this is or null. So this is user or null. So when it gives us null, that means the user is not found in our database. Again, if user is not found, maybe the user is already deleted. We want to say if not user, I mean if the user is null or it is undefined, we want to throw a new app error that says user not found. User not found. Again, this is 411. So let me just come here and send the request again. Server is not running yet. Now run. Send the request again. You can see our route still works. Why? Because the user is actually found. Let me do something. Let me change. Let me just say for now I want to add code my ID. So I'm going to say maybe I'm looking for the user with ID 100, which we obviously do not have. So if I send this request again, our server is not running yet. It is even crashing. User not found. Very good. So you notice that our exception handling, our global error handling stopped handling this alt middleware. Why? Because it is now an async function, which means again in this place we want to do, where's this guy? We want to do async handler of alt middleware. Are you getting me? So that our application won't stop running every time we have an error. So yes, let's send. You can see we now have user not found. Right. So now that we have our user, what we want to do is to attach the user to our requests. So that anywhere you are using, after this middleware is being run, after this, where is it? After this middleware is being run, the request object, which is this guy, it remains the same throughout the middleware, throughout the controller, throughout everywhere. This request, which is the incoming request definition, it remains the same. Just one object that is being passed around. So what we just want to do at this point is to attach the user to that request, which will now say request.user is user. Are you getting me? So that means immediately after this middleware had run, anybody else that is getting this request would have access to user as well. And we are getting an error here. Property user doesn't exist in request because property user doesn't exist in this request type. So what we are going to do, I created types here. What I'm going to do is to come here and say export. Let me do it here. Let me do it here. Export interface. Interface protected request, which extends requests imported from Express, requests imported from Express. Are you getting it? Which means this protected request is also a request, but the protected request will have access to user. Am I communicating with someone? The protected request would have the user attributes. Sorry, please give me a moment. Are we still? Are we still? Are we still? Are we all still connected? Okay. So where am I? Okay. So I was saying that I created a new request type, which is a protected request. As protected request is going to have it, but protected request now asks user, which request doesn't have. Are you getting me? So what I'm going to do is to say this place we expect protected requests. So you can see this error is now disappeared. And okay, for now, this error is now disappeared. But one thing about TypeScript is that wherever you're having issue, your IDE will tell you immediately. You can see my index is now having this red line. Definitely somewhere in my route as well. Somewhere here, if I'm not having it here. But here I'm having this red line, which says expected arguments request something is not assignable to parameter something. So what we are going to do is to come inside this place and say this guy, this request can receive either the normal request or protected request. Are you getting me? The request can be the normal express request or a request that has users, that has the user attribute, which is the protected request. I hope I'm communicating. And let me see the auth middleware, something. Well, we can also come here and say the request can be the normal request or the protected request. Should just be the normal request. Okay, I guess I'm saying something. This is Angular. This is going to return its as protected request as well. Let's see, argument something is not assignable to parameter express route handler. Let's just come to our express route handler again here and just say expect some accepted requests. That can work. So let me return this back to the way it is. We have our requests, right? Everything seems working, or this is not working. You know what? Inside this auth middleware, we expect the normal requests. The normal requests. The normal requests. But we want to say let's just say let's say a constant of new requests is requests as protected requests, and here I can say new requests dot user so user. This thing will not work as expected because we are creating a new instance of requests, which is not what we want. We want to attach it to the current one. So yes, this thing has to work. Yes. But what we are going to do is to say in our protected request, user can be optional. Since it be optional, the user can be optional, and yes, our error has disappeared. So user can be optional, which means in some requests you may not have the user. So now that our server is running, let me just reiterate on everything we've done. We had to use protected request here, and we created a new interface of protected request which extends requests, and this has an optional user. Are you getting me? And we did all our validations we want to do here, and at the end of the day, we attached user to the request, which means everyone that has access to this request now has access to user. Now as user. So which means this function inside this place, this request will now be a protected request. I expect that we have one error somewhere, but we don't. And we can now say user is request.user. Don't forget it is a protected request, so it has access to user. If I send, I have user not found. Don't forget I have coded my user ID here, so this should be decoded.user ID. And let's wait for our server to start running. Now running, and let me send. You can see we now have user. Are you getting me? One thing I also want to do is to come here and say user without password. So let me just say constant user without no. Just like we did the other time, we have constant password and user without password, which is our user. Then we want to say request.user should be user without password as user. It should be identified as user, but we know it is user without password. So let me just send this and you can see we don't have our password on the user attribute anymore. So that is that about handling auth. Now we have access to user, and we are sure that if the user doesn't pass in the token, you can't access our endpoints unless you pass in the actual valid token. At this point, does anyone have any question? Does anyone have any question? Are we all still connected? Hello? Can everyone hear me? Okay, does anyone have any question at this time? All right, so let me just continue. So we are working on a blog system. Now we want to create a blog post. So what we are going to do is to come here and say inside our route, we want to create a new route, a new folder called protected. So this is where we are going to define all our protected routes. And here we want to create post routes .ts, and let me just copy everything here. It's paste just our basic routes. Start basic routes, and inside our protected routes, we want to say router.use. Wherever the endpoint is posts, we want to use. So I'm going to import post routes from inside this folder. Go to protected and get me post routes. So going to come here and say post routes. So you can see here we are not defining the request type. Is it get? Is it post? Is it patch? We are saying use, which means everywhere you see this, you want to use this post route. So I can remove this. We don't need it anymore. And inside here, I want to add a new folder and say posts. I want to copy this and paste it inside. I'm coming here inside this and say posts. And this here will now have app/posts. Don't forget, this app is the one that will check is the user logged in, so and so. And then the actual post we want to send. So let me send. I should have 404. Authorization not found. So I'm kidding. Authorization token, it should inherit from parents. See. So route post not found. We've not defined that route. So this time we want to create a post. So what I'm going to do is to come here and in my controller, I want to create a new controller and say post controller. I can see I'll export a constant function that says create posts, which will have the request and the response. But this time we have a protected requests. Are you getting me? So yes, inside our post route, I want to say router.posts, which is a post request. On the base part, I want to use create post gotten from post controller. Now I have some funny error. I want to wrap this to async something handler. I believe we should be good, protected something. So let's say this guy to let's check the way we did it here. So the problem here is because we said coming. It's because we said this guy, this create post expects come out of this. Let me show you something. I want to come out of this folder, come out of the route folder again, go to controllers, go to post controller. I should be good here. Let me close this envelope. Okay. Let me just do this. So I was saying the problem here is that the create post expects a protected route and not This is our usual route. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to say this function, this async function, can, so the function it is going to receive can be a normal request or a protected request. I believe so. I should fix our problem. Let's resolve it. Or better still, we can say in our I'm going to remove this. We can say in our create post, which is here, I want to say request as protected requests. I believe that should work. Okay. Please give me a moment.
Your mic is muted. Oh.
Yeah, I'm still with you. I'm just copying some things.
All right. Okay.
All right. So the solution to this issue seems a little bit complex, but I'm going to show you. Are you getting me? So what I'm going to do is to say, where's this guy? This is our async handler. Would use a generic request type. It is saying that I want to say that these requests sometimes will not be requests. We want to be able to specify what type the request is dynamically or generically. So what we are going to do is to say, we are going to put a type annotation here and say T, which we use to represent the incoming type, and say we should extend requests. But if it is not provided, the default should be requests, right? And then our request type can actually be T. Are you getting me now? And here again, we can say our request type again here. So we do something very similar here. T extends request, and our request type here again should be T. Are you getting me? So what we are going to do is to say this async function, you can pass in the request type. And when you pass in the request type, which is T, this express handler, the request type also should be T. So if the T here is protected request, the T here is, sorry, the T here too will be protected requests. Exactly. So what we can now do is to say, is to come to somewhere here, protected route, and say this should be protected route. And inside our create post, where is it? I'm expecting that have an error at this point. Cannot find create post, so let's import. Again, let me check. See. So this is not assignable to this. This is supposed to return. I'm coming. Create posts. So express route handler, which is this guy. Basically, what this thing is saying is that we are supposed to have next year, if I'm correct, and we don't need it. We don't need next year. We don't need, am I correct? I guess I'm not. Well, another thing we can do is to say, instead of wrapping all these things that we can just come here and take it out. We can just say this should be an async handler, right? And inside this async handler, don't forget to have passing the function which will handle the actual logic. We can now say this function can receive requests, protected requests. Response is response from express. And yes, so since we have this here in our route, this guy, in our route, we won't need to wrap it in async. We won't need to wrap it in async and like in, since the actual function is already being wrapped. As a matter of fact, I should wrap it at this point. So what we did here, I'm going to remove it from here. I'm going to remove it from here and do it here. So likewise here. So what I just did is to remove it from here and wrap it actually in the actual controller, which is, check here, see it, if you check here, you see it. So again, back to our posts, everything now works. not have any error anywhere. So does everyone understand what I just did? Is there anyone it is confusing to? All right, so if that is the case, I'll continue with what I'm doing. So let me send. This time around, I have route posts. This should be posts, S URL. So send route posts not found. If I come to posts, come to protected routes, it should be S. Still getting full flow. What's from? All right, so we have app here. Inside app, we have. Let me remove this thing from here as well. Inside the out, maybe we have to wrap into a sync handler. All right, so here we have the alt middleware, we have the protected route. And after the alt middleware is being run, we want the protected route to run. We have to route that to use this. So I don't think that should be giving us 404. Okay, let's just do something here. Okay. So the problem is that I'm calling a get request, or I defined a post request here. So if I change this to post and send, I should have a separate error. We are already getting an error, which the issue here is that it's not responding. And the reason it's not responding is that our create post response, our function doesn't return anything. So let's just return something very, very basic. Let's say response dot press dot status is 200. Then I just apply send. And send. So yes, our create post, what's it called? Our create post endpoint is now working. So how do we create post? If I come again, check our schema, we have the title and the content. So that means we need the title and the content from the payload, which we are going to come here and say stands title and the content should be gotten from request.body. Right. And how do we create a post? We want to confirm that we have title and content. So if not title or not content, we want to throw a new app error that says ensure title and content are provided. This should be, I think, 400. Yes. Then let's send this and see. The server is not running yet. Now running. Ensure title and content are provided. And if they are provided, we want to create a post. We are coming to come here and say a constant post is what is first of all we'll get our Prisma clients. Prisma clients. We want to see. So in our next class, I'll be teaching us how we can use a singleton for this Prisma client. So we don't have to be creating a new client every time. So yes, our post will be something like await Prisma.blog post that creates, and we have the data to be title and content. I think I'm going to save the author ID as well, or just say author ID as well is request.user.author. Request.user is possibly undefined, so we are going to add question mark here. If it is not undefined, you want to say more. It's protected request as to user. Not optional. Just optional. So yeah, here we are going to say, let me see. All right, so what we are going to do is to say this question mark, let me increase the brightness of the size of this thing. This question mark here means if we don't have user, you should just make this thing assign null to author ID. But if I change this to exclamation mark, that means we are certain that there is user. And actually we are certain because we already have our middlewares in place, so we have nothing to worry about. We have our created post, can come here and say response is something like, let's say this post successfully created and data, we have posts, and then success is true. We want to return very good. The response status code is 201 and JSON. So yes, let's send. My server is not running yet. Now running. So let me send. Our authorization token has expired. Is it up to 1 hour yet? So what we are going to do is to log in again. Copy this. Come to protected route and just replace it. So if I send again, it should work. Now we have title and content. Okay, ensure title and content are provided. So we'll come to our body, come to raw, want to pass in a JSON. Our title is random title. Okay, random Lawrence sentence. Yes, that's the title, and then going to wrap this in, and then our content will be random Lawrence paragraphs. Yes, and if I send this bad control of character string something, this thing is running. Let's change this to just a paragraph. Send. Yes, you can now see we have our post being created. We have the title and the content. We have the is published, which is default to false. We have the author ID, which is 13. And 13 is gotten from this our request from our token. So our system is now able to determine that, okay, this is the logged in user, and then it is automatically attaching the logged in user to that post. Are you getting me now? This is an error. It's Prisma invocation. That's funny. So in our schema, in our database, when working with what's it called? With maybe a blog post, something that can have multi-line of text. So this string here has, let me show you something in the database. If I come to structure, this is our user. If I come to blog post, come to structure, you see I have content with maximum lines of 499, maximum characters of 199. So what I can do is to say that I don't want the default data type for string is variable character, which is varchar variable character. So I don't want the type to be the variable character. I want it to be a text. So I'm going to say db with texts, right? I'm going to run migration. And I'm going to run migration. So coming and say npx prisma migrate dev. The name is, what's the name again? Change content, change blog posts, content, data type. And you can see your database is now synced with your schema. So if I come back here and reload, you can see my data type is now text. So that way, I'm certain that it can accept enough paragraphs that I want. I can even change this to paragraphs and not just one paragraph. So let me see. Okay, let's just use a paragraph for now. And yes, our blog post is now still working. All right, look at this time here. This is 22 milliseconds. We are still coming to this, right? That would be towards the end of the training. We are still coming to how to make sure that, because for now, 22 milliseconds is still a reasonable time, right? But we'll still come back to that. Now that we've been able to create posts, I need to change this to create posts. I want to get posts. I'm going to duplicate this. I'm going to rename this to get posts. I'm going to change this to a get request. We do not have anybody. I'm going to save this. I'm going to get an error. Route post routes. I'm going to create a new route for get. I'm going to come and say get posts, which I've not created yet. So I'm going to come to my post controller. I'm exporting a new constant function called get post. I'm wrapping it inside async handler. And what do I want to do? I just want to get posts. Posts is await prisma.post.find menu. Prisma.blog posts.find menu. where the author ID is our logged user. It's request.user.id. And now we have our post. What we can do is to say our response success is true, just our normal response format. And today we want to return rest.status code. It's 200. JSON is response. I think here we are using status code. So I've saved this. Let me import get post. Let me remove every import I'm not using here. Yes. So if I come back here and send this request, our server is not running yet. Alright. And send this request. You can see we now have our post attached to the user. I think I can even get the user, which is the author as well. If I'm correct, I should be able to do with I'm coming. So I can say include, you can include the author, which is true. So if I come back here again and send, you can see I now have author. But again, this author is showing this password and I don't like that. We'll find a way to do that in our next class. But here you can see we now have inside everything and we now have the author attributes. Does that make sense? Are we all still connected? Oh, nice. So let me see our curriculum. Okay, so I won't be taking our time for that. That will bring us to the end of today's class. And that will bring us to the end of authentication and security. Does anyone have any question for me? Any question? Are we connected? Can everyone hear me? All right, so that means nobody have any question. Can someone give me a recap of what we did this evening? Anyone to give me a recap of what we did this evening?
So I didn't really get all of it, to be honest, and I'll be catching up with the video. But from what I got, we concluded the authentication. Yeah, we concluded authentication today. So we worked on the login function, the register function, and then you emphasized on ensuring that our passwords are safe and they don't come back with the response, I guess. And then we worked on creating blog posts, comments, and then you worked on changing the format, the comment format. I think you changed it from string to text to increase the character limit. Yeah.
Yes, thank you for that. So in today's class, we continued with authentication and security, where we handled login. We were able to generate a JWT token for the users to be able to use in their subsequent request. From the token, the system can be able to detect who is logged in presently, who is making this request. I also mentioned how we can make sure our password is not returning back to the user. Additionally, we created a post and we got posts. Are we clear? All right, nice. I think Mr. Johnson already, or is he still here? Okay, Fola, you are raising your hand.
Yeah, sorry. Can I send you a direct message on Slack?
Yes, you can.
All right, thank you.
All right, so that brings us to the end of today's lesson. Earlier today, I sent the capstone project topics to the group. Everyone needs to, you guys need to have, you should have aligned with your partner as at now on how you start the project. You'll be pushing your code base on GitHub, so I can guide wherever you need to need assistance and review it as well. Because you'll be presenting it, and that'll bring us to the end of today's class.
Yeah, sorry, I have a question. Oh, sorry, observation rather.
Okay.
Okay, yeah, good evening, everyone. Good evening, I am there. So earlier today, when you dropped the PDF file, I messaged you and I replied to the thread that I couldn't find my name among the list that you created. So I don't know why is that? Why I'm being left out?
So the name was collated based on two things. The first thing is the last assignment, and the second is the attendance. Are you getting this? So if you are not seeing your name there, that means probably you didn't submit the last assignment or you are not so active in class. However, the project I sent, the group I created, the groups, they are 8 in number, and the project topic I sent is 9. Are you getting it? So those that are not added to any group yet, you still have to create 4 more groups for them. You get that?
Okay, I get that. But the funny thing is, I've never missed any class and I've never missed any assignment. So I'm surprised at why am I being left out. I don't know what the criteria might be, but one thing I'm sure is I've never missed any class and I've never missed any assignment.
All right, that's fine. I'll review your assignments again and let you know which group you'll be joining.
All right, thank you.
Yes, boss. All right, that'll be all for today. Thank you, everyone. Good night, everyone.